Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt like you're constantly giving but getting nothing in return? Like no matter how much you do for others, they keep taking advantage of your kindness? If that sounds familiar, then today's message is for you. Too often we find ourselves drained, exhausted, and unappreciated because we let people walk all over us. We say yes when we want to say no. We tolerate disrespect, and we keep making excuses for those who only show up when they need something. But enough is enough. It's time to take back your power, to set boundaries, to recognize your worth, and to stop letting people use you. Because the truth is, if you don't value yourself, no one else will. Today, let's talk about breaking free from this cycle and stepping into the confident, strong, and self-respecting person you were meant to be. Are you ready to take back your power? Let's do this. Knowing your worth is the foundation of self-respect, confidence, and a fulfilling life. Too often, people allow themselves to be used because they struggle to recognize their own value. This can stem from childhood experiences, societal conditioning, or past relationships that made them feel unworthy. When individuals don't fully understand their worth, they may constantly seek external validation, believing that their value is determined by how much they do for others. This mindset creates a cycle where they overextend themselves, hoping to earn love, acceptance, or appreciation, yet often end up feeling drained, disrespected, and unfulfilled. One of the key reasons people struggle with knowing their worth is the fear of rejection. Many individuals tie their self-esteem to how others perceive them, making it difficult to set boundaries or say no. They worry that if they stop being overly accommodating, people will abandon them or think less of them. This fear often leads to people-pleasing behaviors where they prioritize others' needs above their own. While being kind and helpful is a positive trait, it becomes damaging when it comes at the cost of one's well-being. Realizing that worth is not dependent on external validation but is an inherent part of who you are is a crucial step toward breaking free from this pattern. Another reason people allow themselves to be used is that they confuse selflessness with self-sacrifice. They believe that constantly giving, even when it hurts them, is a sign of strength, love, or generosity. In reality, excessive self-sacrifice often leads to resentment, burnout, and emotional exhaustion. True generosity should come from a place of abundance, not obligation. When individuals understand their worth, they recognize that their time, energy, and resources are valuable and should not be given away to those who do not appreciate or reciprocate. They start to prioritize relationships that are mutually supportive rather than one-sided. Past experiences also shape how people perceive their worth. If someone grew up in an environment where their feelings were dismissed, their efforts were never acknowledged, or they were constantly criticized, they might internalize the belief that they are not good enough. This can lead to a pattern of overcompensating in adulthood, always trying to prove their value by going above and beyond for others. However, this often results in attracting people who take advantage of their giving nature. Healing from these past wounds requires self-reflection, self-compassion, and the realization that worth is not something that needs to be earned. It already exists within. Media and society also play a role in shaping perceptions of self-worth. Messages that glorify self-sacrifice, overworking, or constantly putting others first can reinforce the idea that being valuable means being indispensable to others. This is especially prevalent in certain cultural expectations that pressure individuals, especially women, to always be nurturing, accommodating, and selfless. While caring for others is important, it should not come at the expense of one's happiness, peace, and self-respect. Recognizing and unlearning these societal expectations is essential in developing a strong sense of self-worth. When people know their worth, they naturally start setting boundaries. They understand that their time and energy are limited. and should be directed toward things and people that align with their values. They no longer feel the need to say yes to everything or tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. Instead, they prioritize their well-being, knowing that doing so is not selfish, but necessary. Setting boundaries is not about being rude or unkind. It is about ensuring that one's kindness is not taken for granted. Another shift that happens when individuals embrace their worth is that they stop settling for less than they deserve. This applies to relationships, friendships, work environments, and personal goals. They recognize that they do not have to accept mistreatment, low-effort relationships, or unfulfilling situations simply because they fear being alone or think they cannot do better. They start surrounding themselves with people who uplift, respect, and appreciate them rather than those who only take without giving. This transformation often leads to a more fulfilling and peaceful life as they remove toxic influences and make space for genuine connection. Knowing one's worth also fosters self-confidence. People who value themselves do not need constant approval from others to feel validated. They trust their decisions, respect their own opinions, and are not easily swayed by negative comments or societal pressures. They understand that they do not have to be perfect to be worthy. This mindset allows them to take risks, pursue their dreams, and stand firm in their beliefs without fear of judgment. They embrace their strengths and accept their flaws, knowing that imperfections do not diminish their value. A significant part of recognizing self-worth is learning to listen to intuition. Many people ignore red flags in relationships, friendships, or work situations because they doubt themselves or fear confrontation. When individuals are confident in their worth, they trust their instincts and do not second-guess themselves when something feels off. They walk away from situations that do not serve them, knowing that they deserve better. This self-trust leads to better decision-making and a life that aligns with their values and happiness. Investing in personal growth is another way to reinforce self-worth. When people dedicate time to improving themselves, whether through learning new skills, prioritizing self-care, or setting goals, they send a message to themselves that they matter. This creates a positive cycle where they continue to grow, evolve, and attract better opportunities and relationships. They stop waiting for others to validate them and instead create their own sense of fulfillment. Knowing one's worth also changes the way people handle rejection and setbacks. Instead of seeing rejection as a reflection of their inadequacy, they understand that it is simply a redirection towards something better. They do not take things personally when people do not appreciate them or when relationships do not work out. They recognize that their value does not decrease just because someone else fails to see it. This mindset allows them to move forward with confidence and resilience. One of the biggest transformations that come with knowing one's worth is the ability to say no without guilt. People who struggle with low self-worth often feel obligated to say yes to every request, fearing that saying no will make them appear selfish or unkind. However, when individuals recognize their value, they understand that they are not responsible for pleasing everyone. They no longer feel the need to over-explain or justify their decisions. A simple no is enough. They prioritize their peace and energy, knowing that they do not owe anyone constant access to their time and efforts. Recognizing self-worth also leads to emotional independence. Instead of relying on others to make them feel good about themselves, individuals with a strong sense of worth cultivate self-love from within. They no longer need external validation to feel complete. They celebrate their achievements, appreciate their own company, and develop a deep sense of self-acceptance. This independence allows them to engage in relationships from a place of confidence rather than neediness. When people truly embrace their worth, they radiate a different energy. They attract healthier relationships, opportunities, and experiences because they no longer settle for less than they deserve. They develop a strong sense of self-respect that commands respect from others. They stop over-explaining, over-giving, and over-apologizing. Instead, they live authentically, knowing that they are enough just as they are. The journey to knowing one's worth is not always easy, especially for those who have spent years believing they are not enough. It requires unlearning past conditioning, setting new standards, and consistently reminding oneself of their value. However, once individuals make the shift, their entire lives change. They no longer tolerate toxic behavior, they stand firm in their boundaries, and they move through life with a sense of confidence and peace. The moment they realize that they are worthy, not because of what they do for others, but simply because they exist, is the moment they take back their power. Setting clear boundaries is essential for maintaining self-respect, protecting emotional well-being, and fostering healthy relationships. Many people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear conflict, rejection, or being perceived as selfish. They often find themselves saying yes when they want to say no, overcommitting to obligations that drain them, and tolerating behaviors that make them uncomfortable. This pattern leads to frustration, resentment, and exhaustion because they are constantly putting others' needs above their own. Learning to set boundaries is not about pushing people away, but about creating space for respect, balance, and mutual understanding in relationships. One of the main reasons people fail to set boundaries is the fear of disappointing others. Many individuals grow up believing that their worth is tied to how much they do for others, making it difficult for them to say no. They worry that asserting themselves will make them seem unkind or unhelpful, leading to feelings of guilt. This guilt can be overwhelming, causing them to continue sacrificing their own needs for the sake of maintaining harmony. However, constantly suppressing one's feelings and desires to accommodate others is not a healthy or sustainable way to live. It leads to internal frustration, making them feel unappreciated and undervalued. Another factor that prevents people from setting boundaries is the need for approval. Many individuals, especially those with people-pleasing tendencies, seek validation from others and fear that standing up for themselves will make them less likable. However, genuine relationships are built on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. People who truly care about and respect someone will not be offended by their need to establish healthy limits. Learning to detach self-worth from external approval is a crucial step in developing strong boundaries. Societal conditioning also plays a role in the difficulty of setting boundaries. Many cultures and environments promote the idea that being a good person means always being available, always helping others, and never putting oneself first. In some families, children are taught that saying no to elders or authority figures is disrespectful, leading them to carry this fear into adulthood. In workplaces, employees are often expected to go beyond their job descriptions, leading to burnout and stress. In relationships, there is sometimes an expectation that love means always sacrificing personal needs. These ingrained beliefs make it difficult for people to recognize that setting boundaries is not an act of defiance or selfishness, but an act of self-care and self-respect. A lack of boundaries often leads to emotional exhaustion. When individuals constantly give without limits, they become drained, leaving them with little energy for themselves. They may find themselves feeling resentful toward the very people they are trying to please because they feel unappreciated or taken advantage of. This resentment can manifest in passive-aggressive behavior, avoidance, or emotional outbursts, damaging relationships instead of strengthening them. Setting boundaries helps prevent this cycle by ensuring that energy is distributed in a way that is healthy and sustainable. One of the most important aspects of setting boundaries is learning to say no. Many people struggle with this simple word because they feel obligated to provide long explanations or fear that rejecting a request will harm a relationship. However, saying no does not require justification. It is a complete sentence that acknowledges one's own limits and priorities. Practicing saying no in a firm but respectful manner helps build confidence in setting boundaries. Instead of over-apologizing or making excuses, individuals can simply state their decision and stand by it. The more they practice, the easier it becomes to assert themselves without guilt. Another key component of setting boundaries is identifying personal limits. This requires self-awareness and reflection to understand what behaviors, requests, or situations make one feel uncomfortable, overwhelmed, or disrespected. Some people may struggle with recognizing their limits because they have spent so much time prioritizing others that they have lost touch with their own needs. Taking the time to evaluate what feels right and what feels draining is essential in establishing strong and effective boundaries. Many people assume that others should automatically know and respect their limits, but without clear communication, misunderstandings can occur. Expressing boundaries in a direct and confident manner helps eliminate confusion and ensures that others understand expectations. This does not mean being aggressive or confrontational. Rather, it involves being honest and assertive, using I statements such as "I feel uncomfortable when," or "I need some space to recharge," allows individuals to express their needs without placing blame or creating defensiveness. Clear and respectful communication makes it more likely that boundaries will be honored. Enforcing boundaries consistently is just as important as setting them. If individuals set limits but do not follow through when those limits are crossed, others will not take them seriously. Some people may test boundaries to see if they are flexible, especially if they are used to having unlimited access to someone's time and energy. It is crucial to reinforce boundaries by standing firm when they are challenged. This may mean declining requests repeatedly, reminding others of established limits, or distancing oneself from those who consistently disrespect boundaries. Consistency helps establish that these boundaries are non-negotiable. Some people will resist boundaries, especially if they have benefited from the absence of them. This resistance can come in the form of guilt tripping, manipulation, or even anger. Individuals who are used to taking advantage of others may react negatively when they are no longer able to do so. It is important to remember that this reaction is not a reflection of one's worth, but rather a reflection of the other person's unwillingness to respect limits. Those who genuinely care will adjust and respect boundaries, even if it takes time for them to understand the changes. Setting boundaries also involves recognizing toxic relationships. Some people will never respect limits, no matter how clearly they are communicated. These individuals may try to manipulate, guilt trip, or pressure others into compliance. Recognizing when a relationship is unhealthy and being willing to walk away if necessary is a vital part of self-respect. Cutting ties with those who consistently disregard boundaries can be difficult, but it is sometimes necessary for personal growth and well-being. Surrounding oneself with supportive and respectful people makes it easier to maintain and uphold boundaries. Another benefit of setting boundaries is the increased sense of self-confidence and empowerment that comes with it. When individuals stand up for themselves and prioritize their needs, they begin to trust themselves more. They realize that they have the right to protect their time, energy, and emotions. This confidence extends into other areas of life, allowing them to make decisions with clarity, engage in healthier relationships, and pursue their goals without fear of judgment or obligation. They begin to experience life on their own terms rather than constantly adjusting to accommodate others. Self-care is also deeply connected to accommodate others. People who set and maintain boundaries have more time and energy to focus on their own well-being. They are able to rest without guilt, engage in activities that bring them joy, and prioritize their mental and physical health. Without boundaries, self-care often takes a back seat to meeting others' demands. However, self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. When individuals protect their time and energy through boundaries, they create space for self-care, leading to a healthier and more balanced life. One of the most liberating realizations about setting boundaries is that it is not about controlling others. It is about controlling oneself. Individuals cannot force others to change their behavior, but they can control how they respond. They can choose who they allow into their lives, what treatment they tolerate, and how they spend their time. This shift in perspective empowers individuals to take ownership of their own happiness and well-being. They stop waiting for others to change and instead focus on enforcing their own standards. Developing strong boundaries takes time and practice, especially for those who have spent years without them. It requires unlearning past conditioning, challenging fears, and embracing self-worth. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but the discomfort is temporary compared to the long-term peace and empowerment that come from having clear and healthy boundaries. Each time individuals assert themselves, they reinforce the belief that their needs matter. Recognizing toxic patterns is a crucial step in protecting one's energy, mental health, and overall well-being. Many people find themselves trapped in relationships, friendships, or work environments that drain them, yet they struggle to understand why they feel so exhausted, unappreciated, or taken advantage of. Toxic patterns are often subtle and develop over time, making them difficult to identify. They can manifest in different ways, such as constant one-sided giving, emotional manipulation, or repeated cycles of disrespect and neglect. Learning to recognize these patterns allows individuals to break free from unhealthy dynamics and create a life filled with genuine, supportive connections. One of the most common toxic patterns is excessive people-pleasing. Many individuals are conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to how much they do for others, leading them to constantly put others' needs above their own. They say yes when they want to say no, overextend themselves, and tolerate disrespect out of fear of losing relationships. This pattern often stems from childhood experiences where love and approval were given conditionally only when they were helpful, obedient, or self-sacrificing. Over time, people pleasers attract those who take advantage of their inability to set boundaries. They may find themselves in relationships with individuals who expect them to always be available, never complain, and prioritize their needs over everything else. Recognizing that people-pleasing is a toxic pattern allows individuals to begin valuing their own needs and setting boundaries that protect their energy. Another toxic pattern is the cycle of emotional manipulation. Manipulative individuals use guilt, fear, or obligation to control others. This can appear in different forms, such as making someone feel guilty for setting boundaries, twisting words to shift blame, or using passive-aggressive tactics to get their way. For example, someone might say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me," to make another person feel obligated to comply with their demands. Gaslighting is another form of emotional manipulation where someone makes another person question their own reality by denying events, twisting facts, or dismissing their feelings. Recognizing emotional manipulation is essential in breaking free from toxic relationships. Once individuals identify these tactics, they can refuse to engage in guilt-based interactions and maintain their boundaries with confidence. Toxic patterns often involve relationships that lack reciprocity. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, support, and effort, but toxic dynamics are often one-sided. One person gives endlessly while the other only takes. This can happen in friendships where one person always listens, supports, and makes sacrifices while the other never reciprocates. In romantic relationships, it can manifest as one partner constantly making compromises while the other refuses to change or contribute equally. In workplaces, an employee may go above and beyond their job requirements while receiving little recognition or appreciation. Recognizing the signs of one-sided relationships helps individuals reassess their connections and determine whether they are genuinely valued or simply being used. A lack of respect is another sign of a toxic pattern. Disrespect can come in many forms, including dismissive behavior, belittling comments, or consistent disregard for one's feelings and boundaries. It may appear in the form of jokes at someone's expense, constant interruptions, or an unwillingness to listen or acknowledge someone's perspective. Over time, being treated with disrespect erodes self-confidence and self-worth. Many people tolerate disrespect because they believe it is not bad enough to walk away from the relationship. However, small acts of disrespect accumulate and create an unhealthy dynamic where one person feels undervalued and unimportant. Recognizing that consistent disrespect is a form of toxicity helps individuals demand the respect they deserve and distance themselves from those who refuse to provide it. Another toxic pattern is the cycle of false apologies and empty promises. Some individuals repeatedly hurt others but offer insincere apologies to avoid accountability. They may say things like, "I'm sorry you feel that way," shifting the blame rather than taking responsibility. Others may promise to change but never follow through, repeating the same harmful behaviors again and again. This cycle keeps the other person hopeful, believing that things will eventually improve even though the pattern remains unchanged. Recognizing this cycle is important because it prevents individuals from staying in situations where they are constantly being let down. Understanding that real change requires consistent action, not just words, empowers people to walk away from relationships that only offer temporary apologies with no real effort to improve. Emotional exhaustion is often a sign of being stuck in toxic patterns. Healthy relationships should bring joy, support, and a sense of peace. But toxic relationships drain energy and leave individuals feeling depleted. If someone feels constantly anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed after interacting with certain people, it may be a sign that the relationship is emotionally unhealthy. Toxic individuals often create unnecessary drama, shift blame, or demand constant emotional labor without providing support in return. Recognizing the emotional toll of these interactions allows individuals to take a step back and evaluate whether the relationship is worth maintaining. A key element of toxic patterns is the inability to communicate openly and honestly. In a toxic dynamic, one person may feel afraid to express their thoughts, needs, or concerns because they fear being dismissed, ridiculed, or attacked. They may find themselves walking on eggshells, carefully choosing their words to avoid triggering negative reactions. In a healthy relationship, both parties should feel safe expressing themselves without fear of retaliation or judgment. Recognizing that open communication is absent in a relationship helps individuals see that they are in an environment where their voice is not valued. This realization empowers them to seek connections that allow for honest, respectful dialogue. Another common toxic pattern is conditional love or friendship. In these situations, an individual only receives affection, attention, or kindness when they meet certain expectations. For example, a friend may only be supportive when they need something in return, or a partner may only show affection when they are getting their way. This conditional dynamic creates insecurity because the individual feels they must constantly prove their worth to maintain the relationship. True love and friendship should not be based on conditions or expectations, but on mutual appreciation and respect. Recognizing when relationships are conditional allows individuals to break free from manipulative connections and seek authentic bonds that do not require constant effort to earn love or approval. Toxic patterns also include relationships that revolve around negativity. Some people thrive on complaining, gossiping, or spreading negativity, and being around them can be emotionally draining. They may always focus on problems rather than solutions, criticize others, or encourage a victim mentality. While it is normal to vent or seek support during difficult times, consistently engaging in negativity can have a harmful impact on mental well-being. Recognizing when a relationship is centered on negativity helps individuals decide whether they want to continue being part of that energy or surround themselves with more positive influences. Many people stay stuck in toxic patterns because of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of confrontation, or fear of change. They may convince themselves that things will improve, that they are overreacting, or that they must endure difficult relationships to maintain stability. However, recognizing that fear is keeping them trapped is the first step toward breaking free. Toxic patterns thrive in environments where individuals feel powerless, but once they become aware of these patterns, they regain control over their own lives. Identifying toxicity allows people to make informed decisions about who they allow into their space and how they choose to engage with others. Recognizing toxic patterns is not just about identifying harmful behaviors in others, but also about examining one's own role in these dynamics. Some individuals may unknowingly enable toxic behavior by constantly forgiving without holding others accountable, making excuses for mistreatment, or avoiding difficult conversations. Self-reflection is a crucial part of breaking toxic cycles, as it helps individuals understand why they tolerate certain behaviors and what changes they need to make in their own responses. Acknowledging personal patterns allows for growth and empowers individuals to make healthier choices in the future. The ability to recognize toxicity is a powerful tool in creating a more fulfilling life. It allows individuals to protect their emotional energy, set boundaries with confidence, and surround themselves with people who genuinely care and respect them. Toxic patterns do not disappear on their own. They continue as long as they are tolerated. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward change, giving individuals the strength to prioritize their well-being and build relationships that bring them peace, happiness, and fulfillment. Prioritizing self-worth is one of the most powerful steps in breaking free from toxic dynamics and reclaiming personal power. Many individuals struggle with self-worth because they have spent years placing the needs, opinions, and validation of others above their own. They measure their value based on how much they can give, how well they can please others, or how much they can sacrifice. This mindset often leads to exhaustion, resentment, and a loss of personal identity. Recognizing and embracing self-worth is not about arrogance or selfishness. It is about understanding one's intrinsic value and refusing to settle for less than what is deserved. One of the biggest obstacles to prioritizing self-worth is external validation. Many people have been conditioned to seek approval from others, believing that their value depends on how they are perceived. They may base their self-esteem on compliments, social status, achievements, or the level of attention they receive. This creates a dangerous cycle where their sense of worth fluctuates based on external factors. If they receive praise, they feel good about themselves. If they face criticism or rejection, they feel inadequate. Relying on external validation leaves individuals vulnerable to manipulation because they will go to great lengths to maintain approval, even if it means compromising their own needs and values. True self-worth must come from within. It is a stable foundation that is not shaken by the opinions or actions of others. Another challenge in prioritizing self-worth is the habit of comparing oneself to others. Social media, societal expectations, and cultural norms often pressure individuals to measure their success, attractiveness, and happiness against others. Seeing curated images of people with seemingly perfect lives can create feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. This constant comparison erodes self-worth because it shifts focus from personal growth to unrealistic standards. Instead of recognizing their own strengths and progress, individuals may feel like they are always falling short. Breaking free from this mindset requires shifting focus inward, acknowledging personal achievements, embracing unique qualities, and recognizing that self-worth is not determined by how one measures up to others. Self-worth is also deeply connected to the way individuals allow themselves to be treated. When someone believes they are not worthy of respect, love, or kindness, they tolerate mistreatment. They may stay in relationships where they are undervalued, accept behaviors that make them uncomfortable, or avoid speaking up when they feel disrespected. This pattern often stems from past experiences where they were made to feel unworthy, perhaps through childhood neglect, toxic relationships, or repeated rejection. Over time, they internalize the belief that they do not deserve better, leading them to accept situations that reinforce their low self-worth. Recognizing this cycle is essential in making a change. When individuals truly value themselves, they no longer tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or toxic treatment. They understand that they deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift and appreciate them. Another sign of struggling with self-worth is the difficulty in setting boundaries. Many people fear that asserting their needs will make them unlikable, selfish, or difficult. They may say yes to things they do not want to do, overextend themselves for others, or feel guilty when they prioritize their well-being. This stems from the belief that their value is tied to how much they can give. However, true self-worth means recognizing that one's needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Setting boundaries is not about being rude or unkind. It is about honoring oneself. People who respect themselves understand that they do not have to please everyone or meet every demand placed upon them. They recognize that saying no is a powerful act of self-care and that they are not responsible for managing others' reactions to their boundaries. A lack of self-worth often leads to a pattern of settling for unfulfilling relationships, jobs that do not align with one's passion, or environments that drain energy. Many people remain in situations that make them unhappy because they do not believe they deserve better or fear that they will not find anything else. This mindset keeps them trapped in mediocrity, preventing them from pursuing opportunities that bring joy and fulfillment. Prioritizing self-worth means refusing to settle for anything that does not align with personal happiness and well-being. It means believing that better opportunities exist and having the confidence to seek them out. Self-talk plays a significant role in shaping self-worth. Many individuals engage in negative self-talk without realizing its damaging effects. They criticize themselves harshly, focus on their flaws, and replay past mistakes in their minds. This inner dialogue reinforces feelings of inadequacy and prevents them from recognizing their strengths. Changing self-talk is crucial in building self-worth. Instead of focusing on what is lacking, individuals can practice self-compassion, acknowledging their efforts, celebrating their progress, and speaking to themselves with kindness. The way people talk to themselves matters just as much as the way others talk to them. Shifting from self-criticism to self-encouragement strengthens self-worth and fosters a healthier mindset. Another important aspect of self-worth is learning to trust oneself. Many people doubt their own instincts, second-guess their decisions, or seek constant reassurance from others. This lack of self-trust stems from a belief that others know better or that they are not capable of making the right choices. Over time, this can lead to dependence on external opinions rather than personal intuition. Building self-trust means believing in one's ability to navigate challenges, make wise choices, and handle setbacks. It involves listening to gut feelings, standing by decisions, and recognizing that mistakes are a natural part of growth. When individuals trust themselves, they no longer feel the need to seek constant validation or approval from others. Surrounding oneself with the right people is crucial in maintaining self-worth. Being around those who uplift, support, and respect personal boundaries reinforces the belief that one is valuable and deserving of kindness. On the other hand, spending time with individuals who criticize, manipulate, or take advantage can weaken self-worth. It is important to evaluate relationships and determine whether they contribute positively or negatively to self-perception. Prioritizing self-worth may mean letting go of toxic connections and seeking relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and appreciation. It also means recognizing that self-worth is not determined by how many friends, followers, or admirers one has, but by the quality of the relationships in one's life. Another key element in prioritizing self-worth is taking responsibility for personal happiness. Many people believe that their happiness depends on external circumstances, whether it be a relationship, a job, or the approval of others. However, true happiness comes from within. It is about recognizing that self-worth is not determined by outside factors, but by an internal belief in one's value. Taking responsibility for happiness means making choices that align with personal fulfillment, rather than waiting for others to provide validation. It means pursuing passions, engaging in activities that bring joy, and creating a life that feels meaningful. Practicing self-care is a reflection of self-worth. When individuals believe they are valuable, they take care of their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. They rest when needed, nourish their bodies, and engage in activities that bring them peace. Many people neglect self-care because they feel guilty or believe they must always be productive. However, self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It reinforces the idea that one is worthy of time, care, and attention. Prioritizing self-care is an act of self-love that strengthens self-worth. Letting go of past mistakes and regrets is another important step in prioritizing self-worth. Many individuals hold on to guilt and shame over past decisions, believing that their mistakes define them. This mindset prevents growth and reinforces feelings of unworthiness. However, self-worth is not about perfection. It is about recognizing that mistakes are part of being human. Learning from experiences, forgiving oneself, and moving forward with self-compassion are essential in embracing self-worth. Choosing to prioritize self-worth is a lifelong journey. It requires conscious effort, self-reflection, and a willingness to challenge limiting beliefs. It is about recognizing that worth is not based on accomplishments, appearance, or others' opinions, but on the simple fact that every individual is inherently valuable. When people truly believe in their worth, they stop seeking approval, stop tolerating mistreatment, and stop settling for less than they deserve. They embrace their strengths, trust themselves, and create a life that reflects their true value.